Welcome to Unorthodox Perspectives with your host, Luke Burrows.
I think like your mission, your vision, your purpose, your passion, it's all interlinked.
And Leroy Mabonga.
Discipline is the first step to control.
Guys, welcome back. Unorthodox Perspectives, we're here, episode 9. Hope you've had an awesome week. Leroy, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. I hope everybody's good, and welcome back. Yes, episode 9. Wow, we're almost at 10, man. Double digits.
double digits already. And we were just talking before how we feel like each episode is kind of builds into the next episode, which is amazing. Even like when we've had the guests and that, like that flow. And today's continuing with that. Do you want to share what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah. Today we're going to be talking about just taking a break. Taking a break from I guess anything that you feel like that's your purpose, isn't it? Like you feel like that's something you want to accomplish, that's something you want to work on, that you want to develop, you want to grow. Like, but do you ever take your foot off the gas in a way, right? I'm still on point, right?
You are, man. You are, and it very much goes into the reflection episode which was episode 8, so the last episode that we done, because it's through that reflection that you may notice that something's not working, so you may have to take that break, or that pause or something, to then go again stronger. And I think so many people are maybe don't want to do that, don't want to take that break, don't want to take that pause, because then they feel like they're going backwards or like whatever it is. But I think sometimes that's necessary. And obviously, you've been through that process and still going through it. And I'm going through that process right now with Grow Together. And I'll kind of share a bit about kind of the process I'm going through. And then maybe if you do the same. Like the reason for it is to be more in alignment with our mission, ultimately. And this year is really kind of highlighted this and I became more clear on what our mission is, and alongside that our values and our principles. Ultimately, there was a great book, I'm gonna forget what it's called, I forgot what it's called. Good to Great, that's it. So it's a book called Good to Great. I forgot who it's by. And then the also has a book called Built to Last, which I haven't read yet. But anyway, in Good to Great, it kind of talks about how good companies go from good to great companies, ultimately. And in there, like that's really helped me over the past couple of months to go, okay, so like our values and our principles, and even with things like then like building that team and bringing the right people on, kind of. So the phrase, or like the thing that they use in the book, is like bringing the right people on the bus, ultimately, and getting the wrong people off the bus, and just ultimately creating like that culture. And while up to this point with Grow Together, we haven't really had a huge team. We started that in July. Then we had a bunch of ideas with like the Grow Together store, etc., which I can't share too much on because we haven't fully launched that yet. But just things like that. It was like, actually, if we're going to really go down this route of and just like implementing more of the things I've learned in that book. In beginning of the year, I read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and really getting clear on like our why and just things like this. So our principles, our values, our why, our mission, and just kind of all these sorts of things. Then why don't we kind of just hold off a little bit, work on a little bit of like a rebrand type thing, and then go hard and go, and then push forward with it towards obviously the end of the year and obviously in 2021. So, kind of with that comes a new strategy and everything. So, for us, that was really the idea behind it. Was we're about to launch the Grow Together store, starting to build that team, and then just some of these books that I've read was actually, if we kind of just kind of pause a bit, really get clear, like really get crystal clear on things, and then go hard again, then I just think more things will then be in alignment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think from your experience, like you're saying, like I think for me now, I feel like I'm at the back end of that, sort of like taking that break of like, okay, before we, go hard again, like for me, like as some of you know, like I've got the Q Herbal business I've co-founded with a friend of mine, and I also have Faith Health and Wealth, but there's also one other blog site that I've always had called the General Assembly, and obviously that has always been there, and it being there, like that was the first ever sort of thing I created for
Mm-hmm.
to complete a purpose that I feel like I can actually provide something,
Mm-hmm.
So that was that just pure like yes creation, that needs to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Simple as that. I don't know how you came upon Grow Together, but that knowledge, you can do it, you will do it, and you did it, and it's here now. You know what I mean? And in that creation, like as much as you can take your foot off the gas or just take a break or however you want to define it, it's like that creation will not just disappear off the face of the earth. So many
Seriously.
people have been touched by it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's always there. So like you said, like you go back in, and that was for me the General Assembly in a large
Mm.
part. Like me just withdrawing and even just removing every content I had done, like, and just leaving. And because I know the aim and how I was trying to connect with the audience, it was a case where my content was not just content to just be on the online. No, it was actually content to actually help, to actually encourage, to actually comfort, just some way of like just sharing this and hoping that it does good to somebody else, right? Add value. And having that knowledge and then being in a space where you feel like where you are now, as you are doing that, let me just clarify. As you are, doing that thing that you started upon, that you just struck your one point and you've fell in love and just dove right in, and you've done this and you do it, and all those things that you need to do, you are keeping up with it, everything like that. When you then feel like the vision is not as clear as you know it is, but right now it just doesn't seem as clear. Fine. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, fine. Like, if I am the one who's actually sharing this vision, and then I don't see it clearly, how good is it to anybody when I just keep on like just doing it because I have done that? No, it's not good to anyone anymore, is it? Because now it's not coming from a point of clarity,
Yeah.
point of focus, point of like, yeah, it's actually, it's purposeful, what you're doing, you know, it's not just noise anymore.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you would agree with this. I think because I come across a lot of people in like the Grow Together community and just people, and they have a lot of ideas, and ideas if it's for like a blog or a podcast or whatever it is, and I always say to them to just start. And so why I think like this is important, and it comes into what you were just saying there, is because I feel like it's through the journey that then you will learn more about yourself. And if you are building a business, or if you are starting a podcast or a blog, you'll learn more about the actual like the core values you want to implement into it, or the culture you want to build, or the content you want to share. But you don't know for a lot of people unless you just start it. When I first started Grow Together, I kind of had that. I knew what path I wanted to go on, but in terms of like our core values, in terms of our mission, like all those things were a little bit blurry. But would I have found those, or like all those things, if I would not, not start to take action on the path I would wanted to go down? and just watch Netflix 24/7? Like, no, because I think like you have to try things, you have to get out there, you have to take action on things to realize what it is you want to do. And even if it's like with you, Leroy, like with what content you want to share and kind of all these different things, because just through that action you're like, oh, I'm really passionate about this, or I'm really interested in this, let's share more of that. For me, then I've learned so much from books and just videos, etc., like getting more educated, and then also being passionate about sharing those things. So I think it plays into what we're talking about in terms of that reflection that we did actually talk about last week, but then also the kind of the taking the break or the pause, because I think when you start to take action, you'll then hit a point in time where then where then you do pause ultimately, to then go back to the drawing board or whatever it is, to then really, because you've took that action, and that you now know what that vision, what that mission is, what those core values are, what those principles are. So then it's just about kind of setting, like kind of formulating a plan or a new plan, or just kind of like linking those all up, because they all of them come to you at different times. Like the mission for Growing Together, or redefining the mission, really happened probably March, April time this year. Our values, and like I started in like 2017, guys, like, you know what I'm saying? So with this last year, towards the end of last year, I feel like I was starting to really uncover more of our principles and our values in that, and then starting to communicate them. But the mission was still a bit like, we're still on that path of actually really defining what that was, and which now we know. So I don't want people to think that, if they are interested in starting a community like Grow Together, or a platform like Grow Together, or a blog, or a podcast like we're doing here, that they need to figure everything out, because I think that comes along the way.
I think that, yeah, it does. I think that, like you said, it really ties in well with what we said, and what we're saying in a way of, okay, this break, I don't want people to misunderstand when you say, like, when you say take that break now, you're not just sitting there, you're not just
of course. I mean, we talking about this before. Obviously, we went live and record. It's like, on the front end, it's like a break. Like, we're not producing as much content. I think the last Instagram post was like back in July or something.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, guys, like, I'm freaking like processes out, like, researching shit, like, constantly, like, new content strategy, like, kind of all these different things. So, and like talking to people, so yeah, it's crazy, but then that's all part of the process. So I think, there's kind of that thing, from the outside, maybe, in terms of they're like taking a break, they're on a beach in wherever, or they're kind of, just sat in front of Netflix again. And
I
it's
think
not like that at all.
Oh, that deep, man. Yeah, this is the side now, yeah. But if you think of what you just said there, like taking a break, what we generally may seem to think of it as, if you think a break is me going to a beach or holiday, yes, it's good, right? I'm not saying don't, but like, if you think, like, if you're constantly working on your thing, and you go away for 2 weeks or a weekend or whatever, come back and you just keep working on, you've taken a break, like, sometimes you are missing it. Because if you think you're still in that sense of, like, you even when you're out there, you may still be trying to connect to your people or your business or your thing there, in a break way, right? Taking a break, and you come back and you're fully in there again. But if you think, if we think of taking a break as just that's your time of just going away, doing whatever, you're just working so long with just sort of like little switches of, like, just little bits. But when we talk about this break, like you're saying, if you are saying, okay, the business front, the where people are seeing, they may not be seeing a lot. Last post was back then, but in you working on it, in you saying you're taking a break, I guess that's the definitions we're trying to differentiate. We're not saying like, it's like you're taking a break from showing people what's inside.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean? It's like you're closing the curtain for a while, but still inside you're working, you know. And in that work, you know that you want to come out with something better. So it's not a case where you are stopping and then you're gonna come back to it whenever and then pick it up from there, but you are stopping and then switching in, and then later on you then come out. Do you know what I mean? So it those breaks are really crucial. Like for me, I would
yeah.
say from my experience, it's like it's really because of the mission that I saw that the General Assembly as, like that's one thing that I know I will never monetize in my life. You
So,
know how many things I'm involved in, right?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But that's one thing I will never monetize in my life for no matter what, because that's something that I will hold forever as it's just share, you know.
So here's a question for you. What
Yeah.
happens? So I think I might know the answer because of the
Yeah.
other things you're invested in and do, which is actually such a good thing. And why I encourage people to do more than one thing, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
If your audience from there say like Leroy, like we want to buy from you, and so the audience like wants to you because you provided so much value, they want to somehow kind of say thank you and kind of give it back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The question that came to mind, and then I instantly thought of the answer, like how would you do that? But then because you are in so many other things, you could just turn around and say, well, here's my perfume, so it doesn't mean like like you say that specific business you're not monetizing it, because then you have other things. If that audience does want to support you because you've provided so much value, you can just kind of say like, look over here. And that's why, one, I like what you're doing, and two, I encourage people to pursue like multiple interests and multiple passions that they have, and then share them. So yeah,
No,
I instantly
definitely.
I instantly thought of that, and then I thought of the kind of the answer to it all, like in a
Yeah.
couple of
I'll
seconds.
give you the answer as well. Like you said it as well, but you see how faith, health, and wealth is there.
Hmm.
Like that in itself, like is something that I know will be there for. We've got a shop that we're creating, right? Do you know what I mean? An e-store that we know that people can actually access certain things out of, and we're working on. That's something where that's that inner work that people may not
Hmm.
see. As much as faith, health, and work may be posting this, maybe doing this, maybe just like you're saying, Grow Together may still be there doing whatever it's doing, but there's deeper work it works, and it's always to provide more value. And like you're saying, the General Assembly, in terms of the faith, health, and wealth, it's something that I know, like, okay, if anybody from the General Assembly is ever interested in, you know, contributing to donate or any way of like for the works of the General Assembly, even some, you're not the first person to say this to me. Like, there was someone who had seen the General Assembly and asked me to sort of like create a website for them, right? Um, in the same format, and I and they were asking, do people pay the vision that I shared with them at that point, because I have a vision for the General Assembly. And she's like, okay, in this long-term vision, are people going to have to pay then for those services and things that you say you want to provide? And I was like, no, really, I don't want to actually make anyone pay. But then she was like, but people always take for granted things that are free.
Yeah.
And unless when people actually pay, even if it's next to nothing, but that just the fact that they had to exchange value, they
Mm.
will they will hold it and regard it in a much better way, that opportunity. That I was like, okay, I hear that. You know what I mean? And which is true. So I guess like you're saying, like that's a topic for another day. When you are more than that one thing, when you know you can be more than that one, you can see how much value you can actually provide through that, and with the more that you can be, if that makes sense.
It does.
you know.
It,
Yeah,
it
man.
does.
Say,
Um, yeah. Sorry for interrupting. One thing you mentioned before as well. So, guys, for a little bit of context, we always have a chat before we record the podcast, and some interesting things come up. You mentioned about patience. I think that's super important during this time because obviously with your experience with your with your business and everything, the General Assembly,
yeah,
you were talking about how with like the content, so and then kind of getting swept up with just like
yeah,
oh, there's like now this marketing tactic or this content tactic or whatever it is. But I think when you're just patient for so when but again, it applies on that personal level, but also on that business level. Like when you know who you are, when you know your values, and kind of all these different things that I have been banging on about in this episode, or I've been banging on about before. When like when you know these things, you don't really care about like the noise outside because like you know who you are. Like you just have that confidence in yourself. And I feel like it's the same in business as well. Like when you know your business values and principles, you don't really get caught up in the latest kind of tactic on whatever it is because you're just so confident in what you do that that doesn't mean you don't try new things and try to like innovate and continue to move forward. It spoke about it in the book I said before, Good to Great, in terms of you had these I think they called them like comparison companies. Then there was this one section all about kind of technology, and the comparison companies, the ones that didn't go from good to great, any time like there was a new kind of tech thing out, even if it was nothing to do or like nothing to do with their industry and their business, they would just jump on it because it was new. Like it's like a flashy toy type of thing. Whereas the good to great companies, they would be really kind of they would do the research and like really focusing on will this, like whatever the tech was at the time, will this actually help us to grow our business for the long term? And just that difference. And I feel like it's the same within life and business. And once you go through that period of that reflection, that break to realign everything, you then, when these kind of times come up, you you're a little bit more assured, I suppose, within your
yeah. You don't
decisions.
question your step
Yeah.
moving
It,
forward.
yeah, if that makes sense. So it just kind of reminded me of the process you went through with the General Assembly in terms of what you were sharing before in terms of the content thing.
I think in terms of that, like I was saying before we jumped on live, like having gone through that initial phase of like, that burst of like love for what you do and just doing and creating and sharing and doing all that. And then you're also realizing that in that on that platform that you're trying to do this on online, obviously I was, there's a certain way you go about it to market, advertise, make sure your content is driven towards people, in front of people's face so people read it and all that. And I guess in a way as well, because you have the passion of wanting the succession of your things to succeed beyond whatever, you now want to implement those things in the way that you work with your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, for me, like as I'm researching and I'm trying to implement and I'm trying to do all these tactics and strategies and everything like that, it really got to a point where I started missing the whole that line that I saw, like, you know what I mean? That I'm walking, like the steps that I'm taking to do what I know, what I came to do. And that realization, it left me foggy in terms of how do I move forward. Do you know what I mean? Like, and because the content is not, it's very much like driven from how I feel, and how it's very, I have to connect to it in order for me to just share, and hopefully connect with someone. I wasn't connecting with my content anymore. You know, I wasn't connecting with my content anymore as much as you have mastered the way to create it. So you can easily jump into that mode of routine. But there was a connection that I just felt disconnected. And I guess, like you said, like that decision to just sort of like just literally just stop everything, like it was calculated as much as it wasn't, because I knew like I couldn't go on, but I knew it was a step needed to be taken for me to go on, you know? So me having that, and then no more than 2 months down the line, the opportunity of faith, health, and wealth, like, comes on board. I think I was still in that place where I was still sharing and everything, but faith, health, and wealth came into place where what I was now learning from it taking a step back
Mm-hmm.
from something I know is already alive, is already there, it exists. People have found value. You know what I mean? Like, I was surprised when I was looking at the data analytics, like, months later, and I was like, whoa, I was actually reaching this amount of people. I was reaching about, over 1,000 views on that website. And for me, I take every view very seriously, because I
Okay.
cannot put uh 20 people in my house right now. 50 people, they wouldn't fit in my house. You know what I mean? 100, yo, it's just you're cramped. So for me, I'm like, if those are the amount of people actually taking a look at something, me knowing that I provided it from a point of trying to actually just give value, like,
Mm.
I know I fulfilled what
Yeah.
I was doing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the amount of numbers, it's the people. And having that knowledge of like, I've taken back on one thing that's very important in my life, but I know I'm working in a way of moving forward. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
finding new strategies, finding new ways to, work with. I had even created a group. I had a group of people that I was working with, and we were trying to build this, from all around the world. And it was just an instant thing. So I had a lot of growing up as well. Those are certain things you have to be very honest with yourself. Like, eh, to come to a point where you realize that, yeah, I need to actually just take a step back. Like, there has to be a lot. You also have to remember, like, that you are not just that business. There's the person who you are, the friend you are, the son, the child, or, whatever you are, all those, they are also impacted by how you also live in your business life. You know what I mean?
For
Everything
sure.
is connected. You know what I'm saying? So, in when you look at everything like that, and I know I'm taking a step back of something, and then certain opportunities keep flourishing now in this back end of work, like, it helped me to grow into a place where, coming back to the General Assembly with the strategy I have for it, it interlinks with the growth you've had. So,
Makes sense.
the strategy, as much as you are working on that new strategy for Grow Together, you think, oh, if somebody's out there and is taking a break, the strategy you're working on, that one thing, is you have to look at it and realize it's connected to everything and who you are, you know? And the way it's going to be so effective when you implement it is because it has just slotted into who you are, you know?
Makes
It's
sense because it makes sense because also, so new strategy for that for sure. But I'm reading this book, reading another book, and it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I don't know if you've come across that. It's an awesome book. Like, people rave about it. And so, kind of, I'm learning new stuff there about habits. And so I'm thinking, actually, it's such a good time. I'm doing this with Grow Together to actually look at maybe more of my personal life per se and change some things there as well. Like, and so collectively, the business grows, I grow, it grows together, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's right. I think so often, especially, I feel like more like traditional businesses, like, they're so focused on like growing their business, which I understand. They've got rent to pay, or all these different things, but they neglect their personal growth, and I'm like, well, surely it has to grow collectively together, because you face a new challenge in your business. Like, you as the operator, you as the leader, need to be able to, come to that decision to move in a different direction, or critical thinking, or problem solving skills, or part of your personal growth, right? So I definitely go along with that in terms of everything's connected, and especially for those who do run businesses or are thinking about it, don't think like business is here and life's are kind of over here, and your personal life's over here. They are connected, for sure. And and I think, again, a lot of people think that they're two completely different things and aren't connected when they are.
Yeah. It's true, man. Like if you constantly look at two things separately, you always feel like the other one is stressing you when something is going better in this other life. And if the other one is bad, but if they are linked and it's harmonious, like you are in a better space because you have a hold on every single thing in your life. So how you share from every point of being, like you're not sharing. If you remember the analogy of the cup that we spoke of the other week, it all links. If you listen to every episode, like we start from a point where we are 20 somethings, you know what I mean? We don't know who we are. We go through the challenges of asserting ourselves and actualizing our own selves in this life, and how to deal with the relations of everyone. That's episode 3, and as you go forward, like if you think like the last couple of episodes we've spoken on reflection and like just taking care of self, and when you are looking at yourself like that cup analogy, in you always knowing that everything, you're not splitting your life of business and life into, but everything is in this one cup, and the more it's filled, the more all of these things will actually be fulfilled in their own right. You know what I mean?
100%.
You're sharing across the board in an equal way that makes you and helps you end up fully fulfilled. Do you know what I'm saying? Nothing is making you feel like you have less than you're having to use more, or so those breaks, like we go back to today, like like I said, for me, I feel like I'm coming to an end of that break with the
Yeah.
General Assembly.
So with that, like, that was the thing that I wanted to come on to next, was like, so I think we kind of covered the break, or deciding, actually I need to take a break right now to realign, refocus, etc. The actual break itself, that behind the scenes is not really a break, but to the people, if we use that phrase, it kind of is like you're not maybe sharing it as much because you're working on that inner, for business, like those inner things, for your personal growth, those inner things as well. And then it's kind of like the next stage, which for us at Grow Together is like that little bit of like a relaunch. For you, it's getting back into running, producing that content, and running the blog and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk us through coming out like the other side. Then I'll do the same.
Yeah, like coming out the other side, it's been interesting because it's for me, like this break has been a long time. It's been almost a year, over a year now, year and a half. And if not 2 actually. But yeah, it was the break in itself, it wasn't there was no time to it. I knew that I could not put a time to it. Otherwise, I'm just forcing myself again. The very thing I'm trying to stop, like it cannot be a force. It has to flow naturally. And in working through the growth I've had in other aspects of my life, like that growth has given me a space where, as much as I'm going through everything else, I'm constantly reflecting back. It's like to the originals, like root of everything, the General Assembly. Do you know what I mean? Like, so now this is the analogy that I have in my mind as when I really started this personal growth journey. Like, I would need to write this somewhere, but it's like a seed, right? That's how I saw myself. And when I was growing, didn't know what I wanted to do, when I, like, as you know, if you go back in my podcast, like, I've dropped out of school, da 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 da, for 4 or 5 years later, I'm here. And that seed, in a way, from a point where it didn't know anything, and when I shot through the ground, like, let's say you're the seed down here,
Mm-hmm.
shooting through the ground, that was me, let's say, with QHERBA and the General Assembly. That was now something to focus on, to grow. Remember,
Yeah.
the aim is to grow, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's the personal seed of yourself. So now I'm like a little shoot of something, right? But you're realizing it's quite a very long road to be before you're a tree that actually is dropping fruits every season, sort of place.
Yeah.
So okay, you're humbled, you go through the experiences, the rain comes down, thunders, you're realizing there's many elements to this world that you're growing yourself into, right? If When you keep growing in that place, like, as I'm saying now, the way that I was reflecting through this break, as I'm coming out now, as I'm explaining, is that every time I'm going through something and I'm reflecting deeply, the depth of that reflection always leads back to the General Assembly. How does this affect
Okay.
the strategy? How does this affect, that very, that that root, you know what I mean? Where the seed was planted, that's where the root is. So it's like, I see it as energy, like, where you are hit as a tree, right? As you are growing, right? There's many elements of the world, the water, the rain, everything, wind, sun, everything like that. Those are your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that shape you. Those are the things that, make you who you are. They bend you, they twist you, but you're still growing, right? And as you are growing like that, I've always thought, like, it's like the energy you're finding from all these elements of things that you're going through, you take it down to your root. It needs to always go down to the depth
Mm.
of who you are, your purpose, what you began, like, the seed of who you are. And when you come back out again, you're renewed in purpose, still disciplined in what you want to become. Something I learned this week is that self-discipline does not mean like you are keeping yourself on the clock, doing this everything on the right, on the dot. No, like, self-discipline is how much you are still in tune with the purpose, with the goal of the mission of what you want to become tomorrow, or whatever it is that you want to be as you grow, right? That is self-discipline. If you can keep that, not letting go and losing it and then just start doing,
Anything.
not anything else. No, but that purpose of knowing you want to become such. The things of waking up at 5, doing things, exercising, keeping yourself in a routine, eat strictly and everything like that. That's good. Nobody's saying don't do that, but don't see it as those are just tools. That's not the purpose. That's not the mission. The mission is here. The tools are here. They're on the side. And you take the tools that you need to complete your purpose, right? So if there's two of you like this, you're somebody with a purpose who knows what you want to do, you want to get to, right? The tools of getting up at 5, drinking, exercising, everything like that, you'll pick them up more than somebody who does not really know what they want to do. They just want to live life, the weekend, like we said before. So the tools of waking up at 5 does not seem, why am I picking up that tool for? It doesn't help me in my purpose of my life of living a weekend lifestyle. You know what I mean? I don't need to wake up at 5 for what? Do you know what I mean? So those are tools that enable you to live in that self-discipline. Like, you have disciplined yourself to live that life of a weekend lifestyle. And you've disciplined yourself to live a lifestyle that becomes more tomorrow, as you want to become. You know what I'm saying? So when you realize self-discipline is the discipline to always keep yourself in check, that's when it changes the game, because the tools are all over the place. You can use anything. So now
Yeah.
it's now of a way of actualizing that discipline, that self, by disciplining yourself to take the necessary tools Do I need to wake up at 5? Do I need to exercise by this time? Do I need to do this and do that so that I can make sure I complete this? This is what I need in my life. This is where I am in my life. This is what I have. Everything like that is now disciplined to the purpose, the root. Do you know what I mean? So in that deep reflection, I've always had that rooting of like, I know where I began, the General Assembly, and I have flourished to be who I am. But as I grow, how is also the General Assembly growing? The strategy, how am I coming out with the General Assembly to match the growth of every single other thing that I have grown as well so far? Do you know
Makes
what I
sense.
mean?
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
it's growing in itself as it is there, but as I'm growing, I never forget to take it with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So over the past year and a half or 2 years, I've gone through what I've gone through. And now coming back, I'm realizing that the General Assembly is going to be the most easiest place that I'm going to be sharing my works, because that's almost like my pastime. That's my having fun time. Do you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? That's just this is just something small anyway, just to explain in terms of my thinking now in that one thing. Like, I have my way that I know I'm going to come out with it. But in terms of thinking, in terms of disciplining myself to making the General Assembly as I know, like, I wanted to as I began, I know the tools that I'm going to use now. Do you know what I mean? So as
Yeah.
I say, like, as my pastime, if you learn a guitar or you like to play guitar or you like to do something in your pastime, you don't see it as something that is like extraneously like effort that you have to put in to do
Mm.
that, because you love to do that. Maybe you like to play games, maybe you like to go out and watch a show. That's your pastime, right? And in my viewing of that one thing in a way that I know I don't need to try and market this to a high level to try and get everybody in to come and see this. As much as it's there, it's going to provide and it's going to be available. But there is more to me. And you can see the General Assembly is connected. So people may come to the General Assembly, but they will find more value to everything else that I've connected the General Assembly to, because everything else connects to the General Assembly. So anybody who connects the General Assembly is subsequently going to see Faith, Health, and Wealth, Q Herba, my writing, if they are going to find more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I suppose also, I feel like we have a similar vision with this, that there would be, forgive me if I'm wrong, more to add on to Faith, Health and Wealth, Q Herba as well, to also link with the General Assembly, like
Yes.
more projects and businesses and
Yeah.
things you want to do in the future as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Simple. Like, and in that way, that's where it's like, when the General Assembly is gonna be the anchor that is
Mm.
gonna hold me to the self that I know I want to become. Do you know what I mean? In this digital format that I know I am to be now. Do you know what I mean? We are moving into a digital space, but now that's a place where, like we said, like, in me now coming out of that break, I've been working so hard. I don't feel like I've had a break. You know what I mean? I've been working so hard,
Yeah.
you know. But here we are. We've got the Unorthodox podcast that we thought of like in over a year, less than a year ago. You know what I mean? That's
Mm.
work. You still work to become that version. You can become. And taking that break, like you're saying, you are taking one for yourself. I need to stop talking. I'm talking too much.
No,
But
continue.
yeah,
No,
man.
man. No, man,
Yeah.
it all makes sense. It all makes sense. And yeah, I think for me, kind of like the other side, and the purpose of the break was to just realign everything. Because I think sometimes you learn so much, um, and when you like first start, but you just start on a path and things aren't clear, and then you learn so much and things start to become clear. I feel like alignment's really important, and that was the biggest thing underpinning kind of our break, is that realignment to then go again strong, and some changes as well, like some big changes as well. because I've noticed in nearly every single podcast episode that I do, the education system comes up, and how to include in life more things like personal growth, mindset, etc. And that's going to be one of our core focuses moving forward. A little hint there for everyone, because it's just crazy to me. It's just crazy to me if it comes up in every single conversation that I have. Like if you go back through the Grow Together podcast, I would say like more than half of the time it comes up, and so surely there's something that can be done with it. And so hopefully, with what we got plans, that can go towards kind of doing that. So, our change again was very much alignment and, learning so much, then wanting to just try to change direction based on those learnings as well. And then coming out the other side, which should be, it's not as long as break as you had, which is fine because again, there's no right way or wrong way to have a break, guys.
Yeah.
It's dependent on kind of you and like if it's you personally or you and your business or whatever it is. For us, we're kind of looking to the first couple of weeks in September. We took a break, kind of mid-July or something, so it'd be like a 2-month type break. But as we kind of come towards more that, there's a lot of things really to do behind the scenes, like new setting up, different platforms, etc. Which goes back to what we were talking about before, is that even though it's a break, like there's a lot of work to also be done to like for that growth and everything. So yeah, our kind of coming out with the break looks like that setting up of different tools and different systems, different processes, etc. Make things more smoothly. And then on communication, like really communicating our values, our principles, like 10 times more than we ever done so before. Really communicating the mission, the vision, and kind of all these different things, which is interesting for me because for so long I didn't want to share that. It's like, well, Luke, why didn't you want to share that? This is where reflection comes in. And I realized it was because when I did share it before, when I first started my journey, like my friends laughed at me, and I was like, okay, like I ain't sharing my vision no more because people are just going to laugh at me. They're going to think it's silly. Instead, I'm just going to put my head down and work. And then over time, when I started to connect with more like-minded people, they would ask me like, Luke, what's your vision? And then there was this one side of me that just wanted to go and kind of share it. And then there was this other side of me that was a bit more caution to be like, remember, Luke, like before people laughed at you, and like this more like negative side, like this more kind of limiting belief side that we all kind of have. And so through that growth, it's been depressing, kind of like, depressing that and allowing the more about that person I want to become, and that of sharing that vision, right, and sharing that mission and really believing in it, talking about it, etc., to kind of come to the forefront. So that's going to be, again, something that we're going to do coming out of like this break period. And I think you said it before, like it's all about growth. It's all about that growth, growing, etc. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of what the coming out the other side looks like for us. So yeah, Leo, I don't know if you have any thoughts on anything I shared there. I love what you shared, especially with the analogy with the tree and everything. I love those. But yeah, I don't know if you have any final thoughts on anything I shared and
No, man, you know me, if I start talking, man, it will be another hour. But nah, I totally get you though. It's all about like knowing what you want to give to the world. Like that's something that I feel like you become, the more you keep telling yourself that you are not nuts, what you're thinking, it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense. And you go out there and you share and you talk and you're saying people who are in that frequency of understanding what you are sharing will ask you, why are you not sharing more of your vision, Luke? Why are you not sharing more of your vision? Because now it's the more you have, self, you're yourself, like told yourself you are right, you are talking
Yeah.
some sense. Do you know what I mean?
I always
Like,
had that. Like I always had that within. It's like, I always had that, so I can completely relate to that. But then
yeah,
you kind of like outside of that, you try to share it outside of it, and if people are like on that frequency, so often like that more limiting side, which is like take over, it'd be like so so frustrating, so annoying, and everything. And so that's part of like the growth that I've had to kind of go through. But yeah, I'll hand it back to you, man.
yeah, man, definitely. Like, and it's that like suppression of that limiting self,
Mm,
and like just it's like almost giving the other self like steroids, like to say, yeah, man, you can do this, like go and do it, man, and you give yourself that boost, man. That's where now, like you said, the reading comes into play, the learning, the researching, the, looking at that, and, looking at your strategy and making sure that it's solidified, in making sure that you are working towards yourself. You're disciplined within that becoming of self. You're reading the Atomic Habits. There's this book called The Habits, a book of habits, or I forgot it now. I've got it on my phone, but that's something. You've got so much content to just keep reminding you that as much as you may not be around the field of people that will support you and look at your vision and actually see that it makes sense, that does not mean give it up. That does not mean stop right now. That does not mean don't do anything about it either. Do it. Prove to yourself first that it is possible. Do you know what I mean?
hmm
Than to wait for people to stop laughing, then you do it. No, do it.
Yeah.
And then you keep going. As much as people are laughing, as much as people don't see what you're doing, like, keep going. Like, I had an experience of my own, like, where I kind of shared the vision, with friends, and like, it's sort of like, as much as they're hearing you, it's like in a patronizing way, and like, it's sort of laughing in a way in your face, but not at you, but with you, but not with you, kind of way. And it's like, it really, like, and for me, that right there, there's no bigger push I can get for me as a person. Like, when I go back to what you also mentioned there, like, you also have to realize who you are and how you work, and taking these breaks and how they impact you. We go back to last episode. Yeah, I can't use the way Mark Zuckerberg, or the way, Jeff Bezos does his day and everything like that, because how his day is engineered and how he goes about it is totally different to who I am.
Yeah.
So in order for me to get the best of myself, like, you also have to engineer yourself in that way. And I was like, fine, like, yo, that day, it's just the disappointment, I guess, and then the rage of feeling like, am I stupid? Like, am I really, is this? But I have this way of, in that very feeling, I have this way of just flipping it, and
Yeah.
now making it charge me up. And I'm like, as long as this thing is gonna be in my head over playing and playing and trying to discourage me, I'm gonna use it as a way to actually encourage me. Say, you're laughing at me. What? It will, like, it's possible. Oh yes. Every time the thought comes back, I'm like, you know what? Nah, it's gonna happen. How can I actually do it? It's like, now you're using it as fuel. You're using it, like, you're taking it and flipping it. When the limiting self is saying, oh, you think you can do it, you switch yourself into the one that can do it, the limitless self, let me now say. I love that movie, the Limitless. I don't know if you've ever watched it, called Limitless. But
Don't know.
it was like, this guy would take this pill and it would just,
Yes. Yes, I remember.
you know what I mean? Like, and he was living a totally different life than the one he used to live. And so you're almost like taking that, like, those jabs, and just flipping them, and then just telling the limitless self, like, you can do it. You can do. How can you do it then? And like you're saying, like, it's like a depression of that one self, and then impression of the other one. You know, you are now, the more this one is coming, trying to put you down, you take it and you flip it, and now, you know, you're trying to push it up, you know, push up. And I guess, you know, that's all, man, I could take from what you said there, man. Like, you know, it's
Awesome, man. I suppose just real quick, and then we'll wrap up. Like,
yeah.
I think that's super empowering. I also think the thing that Gary Vee shares in terms of, he kind of does this thing where he like puts his fingers in his ears and is like, I can't hear the negative people, but I also can't hear the people that give me praise also, or like, you know, kind of that side of things. Because if you, and I do like this from him, because if you listen to like the people who are like, you know, Leroy, like, you're awesome, you're amazing, you should, and kind of all these different things, then you're kind of, what word he uses, suspect. I can't even talk. What's the word he uses? I can't even remember. Yeah, maybe something like that, to like the negative comments as well.
And you are susceptible to the negative comments because you are so, you know, you're taking in the positive ones. Right. So yeah, okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Right. And I suppose it's like the other way around. Like if you listen too much, I don't know, like if you listen too much to the negative and then someone gives you praise, you're like, oh, praise. So, you know, you kind of like hook on to it because you haven't had that. Yeah, you know, you haven't had that praise before. Whereas if you just go about, again, goes back to what we talked about, it's kind of always coming back around full circle. If you go kind of like this type of thing and just focus on your, like your inner self, like who you are, your mission and everything, like you like, and you just play within that circle, I suppose. You're not listening to either, so you just like know who you are, you have that confidence, you go out and take action and you just do stuff, you know, like you share your vision because you don't care if people like it or not, like it's something that you believe in. You share your vision because it's your life and not theirs. You share your vision and you don't care if the haters kind of say anything, because like what are they doing with theirs, you know? So I do like that. The only kind of thing I don't like about that, and maybe it's a balance, is because I also am a huge believer in like the growth mindset. So if there's a part of like your vision that maybe not your vision, but if there's something like you need to improve on, I think you also need to have the, what's the word, kind of humility to go kind of, you know, kind of get help and support sometimes as well. Be open to receiving that. Like maybe that comes in it as well because you know who you are, so you know what weaknesses you have, you know what strengths you know you have, and you focus on the strengths. So I mean, there's a lot there, and that's probably a whole completely different topic for a different day. But yeah, it just kind of reminded me a bit of that, and that's something that now I'm trying to do, is that like don't care about the negative stuff, you know, just like don't listen to them. Try and block out some of like the positive stuff as well. With the positive, I do again, like always say like thank you, and you kind of like these sorts of things, instead of just being like a complete kind of jerk, I suppose, and just kind of, you know, like not doing any of it, because you know, but I think with that side of things, sometimes people let it go far too much to their heads, and like their ego completely takes over. But maybe that's a different topic for a different day. Yeah.
Nah, it's true, man. Like I get you though. I think the only final thought I would have on that is like you said there, like as much as it's good, there's still those little flaws. You think you need to also be able to take a negative comment and be able to, you know, receive it in, you know, with humility. Like I think that's where it's so important to be able to filter in what's good for you.
Yeah.
For your own way of dealing with things, living with people, you know, sharing your vision and everything like that. What's good for you? And if you hear what we spoke about, and you hear like 50% is not really something you'd use, 50% is something that you may find useful, then don't stress yourself about the other 50%.
Yeah, just work on the 50% that works.
Simple as that, you know. And you think he has that way of doing that works for him, but it's not gonna work, like we're saying, it's not gonna work for every single one of us. But in what he's sharing, we can see what he's talking about. And in your understanding, you're also now digesting it and assimilating it to your own livelihood, and knowing like, okay, I can see where it's coming from, But in terms of growing, in terms of connecting, I know how I would want to, connect with my people. Be a person of humility and grow as well from those negative sides of things. But like, don't let it define you. I guess that's what you're saying as well, right?
Right.
Like we
Yeah.
let it define us. So
Yeah.
that's it, man. Define self in a way.
Awesome, man. Well, great episode as always. Guys, yes, subscribe to the podcast. Hopefully next week I'll be able to get my words out. But no, so subscribe to the podcast here, and we will be back next week with another episode. Check out Leroy's stuff, his Instagram. What's your Instagram, man?
Atlasly speaking, you'll find the connections to everything from there.
Cool.
But there's about faith, health, and wealth. That's really good there as well.
Nice. Okay. Nice. Cool. And yeah, guys, you can follow me as well. I'm on every social platform going under the username Real Luke Burrows, and you can find Grow Together, Grow 2, the number 2 together. And yeah, look out for updates and that in the coming weeks, etc. Next week, guys, I think we did have a guest planned, but I'm not sure if that's been. I know we do have a guest planned. Today was meant to be a guest, but then they rearranged. So next week we have a guest on, which I'm looking forward to. So yeah, episode 10. We're hitting double figures. The guest next week. But guys, thank you so much for joining us, Leroy. Pleasure as always. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Unorthodox Perspectives.
If you liked today's episode on the show, please subscribe and leave a comment below.
All relevant links for today's episode of the podcast can be found in the description, so please check them out.
And we will be back next week with another episode. Until then, have an awesome week.